Doc Rivers continues to time and time again not get it when it comes to getting... Oh! Let him play!
He wins. Great steak. Smells like poop.
Honestly, like if Urban Meyer wants to come to Connecticut,
Bring him on. I mean, come on. I'll take him too.
Nia Jackson, I think, weighs 280 pounds.
Oh!
can we isolate that clip? Nia Jack weighs 280 pounds. Oh!
Let her play. From Los Angeles, this is Dave in the City, brought to you by Locks of the Week Radio. Now, here's Dave Medina.
Good evening, sports fans! And a pleasure to have you here for the big baseball show. Good to have you with us from the Dave in the City studios in sunny Southern California. We're pleased to give you our off-season show for the year 2020. And we teased this in previous episodes. We think that the Astros will dominate the conversation. Joining us tonight to start the program, we have Gerry and Piscataway joining us for the first time on Skype, which means you will hear him clearer than ever before. It'll be like Gerry in high definition. Good times. And not too long after that, at the bottom of the hour or the 30-minute mark of this podcast, we'll have Ari joining us as well to chat about all things baseball, including the Astros sign-stealing scandal, for which there's just many penalties, and then a lot of other things under the sun. The Mets damage as a result of that, Carlos Beltran's dismissal from the Mets, and much more. So let's get it started. We have new music to start our MLB segment, and that's the music. Unfortunately, I don't have an actual song yet. I'm working on it. So let's bring Gerry in. Gerry, good to have you back. How's it going tonight?
Dave, thanks for having me. I miss baseball. I needed this.
Yeah, it's boy, and just like that, we have the football season coming to an end, Super Bowl around the corner, but then that means spring training is around the corner too. So let me just lay out what we have tonight. The biggest story of the offseason is the Astros and the dismantling of a dynasty, if you would.
It can't be a dynasty when they win one ring.
Fair point, actually. Very fair point. Maybe a dismantling of what could have been a dynasty, but even then, I didn't think they were going to win.
Dismantling of a championship caliber team, you can say, obviously.
We'll go with that. Yeah, because what happened was, I
mean, Grant, I still think they're going to be pretty good next year. I mean, the players are still there. I mean, we'll see what happens, how much this stuff affects them on the field, but I still think they'll be a good team.
Yeah, no, I actually think that they have a very good chance to win 90 games. Like, that's legit. Mm-hmm. I really, that's not an exaggeration. I think that's really an important thing to note. But as far as them being a consistent World Series title contender, it's probably going to be ending sooner rather than later. So here's what happened. Last month, I don't think it was last month. I think it was earlier this month. MLB suspended both Astros manager A.J. Hinch and Astros general manager Jeff Luhnow for the entire 2020 season as a result of their investigation of the 2017 sign-stealing, video replay, trash can banging scandal. And not long after that, in fact, almost within the hour, the owner of the Astros fired both of those guys altogether. And then not long after that, the Red Sox, knowing that Alex Cora was also implicated in this investigation, fired him. So Cora was fired for his role in cheating while he was still part of the Astros back when he was on the coaching staff back in 2017. And tragically for the Mets, because Carlos Beltran played 1 year with them, they fired him too, which is kind of unfortunate for the Mets, even though Beltran, I can't really speak to what his role was at that point, but just being on the team, it was enough. And so the Mets canned him. And since that time, in fact, it just happened yesterday, they named Luis Rojas to replace Beltran as the manager for 2020. So another Mets move blows up in their face. And you've got the Astros, who now can have a giant ass asterisk next to the 2017 championship, and similar rumblings that the Red Sox may soon be there as well with their 2018 championship because of Cora's involvement with that team. It's really quite an incredible drama here, Cap. I mean, you've been counting this down the entire time. We've all been following it. We noticed that something weird was afoot, and once they got into that investigation, the one that Mike Fiers, of all people, started. He's now with the I don't know who he's with now, but he was with Oakland last year. But in 2017, he was with the Astros. It's crazy. I think MLB did the right thing, but I feel like this entire mess is only beginning, because how do we know that other teams aren't in on this too?
Right.
It's just such a mess. But I'm going to give it to you first for your thoughts on the entire Astros scenario. Certainly, many Yankee fans, not just you, but many had suspected something was up, because they kept hitting every ball. They were barely swinging and missing. Same situation for the Red Sox a year later. And we just thought, oh, these guys are really good at watching pitches. Then we come to find out they knew exactly what type of pitch was coming every single pitch. I mean, that's just over the top. So let's get your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I think you did a great job summarizing that. I'm glad that you pointed out some of the things that you did that I really wanted to touch on. Number one, for a lot of people think that, I would say, not a lot. I mean, some people think that it's not that big of an advantage what the Astros did, and that a player doing PEDs is worse. Now, I disagree. I think when you're in the box, more than half the battle is knowing what pitch is coming. And the statement or the comment that I keep seeing all over Twitter and from different people on the radio is, you still got to hit it, which is a really stupid comment, because yeah, sure, you got to hit it, but you got to be a fool if you either played baseball or watch baseball and don't realize that when you know a pitch is coming, it helps your contact rate, helps your walk rate, helps lower your K rate. And those are three major factors in getting guys on base, scoring runs, and being productive. Not to mention when you have all-star players like the Astros do, that they can do damage when they can sit on a pitch. I mean, when they, when you hear either a whistle or a bang and it's either a slider, curve, or a fastball, and you're sitting on that and you don't have to guess, and you have really good players, it makes the game a lot easier. So that was one of the things that I'm glad you mentioned. And also, I mean, you're obviously a Dodger fan. Did you see the video of 2017 when you guys played in Minute Maid? It was one of the 12 game when you guys scored all those runs. There's a video on YouTube that shows whistling. A straight whistle seemed to be a fastball. When a guy whistled, as in the do-do-do-do-do, it seemed to be, a breaking pitch. Mm-hmm. And you can see it. All those guys are on those pitches. And I believe it was Gurriel who hit a big game-tying home run that game, a 3-run homer. And you hear it loud and clear, the whistles. And obviously, there was the videos for the banging and things like that. And another thing I'm glad that you mentioned was the Fiers thing. A lot of Astro fans, clueless Astro fans, are pointing that this is, driven by, the New York Yankees and the Yankee fans and things like that. If you have a clue, you'll know that Trevor Bauer has been mentioning this for years, that they were doing something over there. B, your own former teammate came out and, basically blew the whistle on you. C, The Athletic did a whole article about what was going on. And then John Boy put everything to a visual. And obviously, when you see a visual, that's more powerful than reading or hearing about it, so I can understand why that stuck in people's minds more. But this was not driven by Yankee fans or, Dodger fans. This came from Fiers. This came from Bauer. This came from the Athletic. I mean, that's where it started. And, a lot of people are pointing, oh, you Yankee fans, this and that, you Dodger fan, this and that. But it started with those guys. And, obviously, like you mentioned, who knows who else is doing it, but to the level that the Dodgers did it, that the Astros did it, I don't know who is putting forth that effort to do something like that. Now, I dislike the Astros very much. I despise the Red Sox. So the fact that the Red Sox are about to trade Mookie Betts, that fire the manager because of this stuff, I love it. I'll dance on their grave. The fact that the Astros are viewed as, one of the biggest cheaters in baseball history, I'll dance on their grave too. I love it. Now, obviously, if the Yankees get implicated, I'll eat my crow. But you're damn right. I'm gonna, dance on their graves the fact that they did this shit. I mean, I see people, don't throw stones if you live in a glass house. Listen, if we get implicated, if we're setting up videos and we have people in the hallway with monitors and buzzers, and the buzzer thing is insane to me. And I truly believe, and I've heard people say this on podcasts, that Major League Baseball knows a lot more than they're letting out. And I believe that. I think that that baseball wants this scandal to end here. It doesn't want a black eye in the game. And I think that they feel like they did enough. They suspended people for a year, this and that. I think the players should be held accountable since it was player driven. But, reading the past couple of days how Manfred had said this is, we gave the players immunity for the full story, this and that. But to be honest with you, I mean, when a team is really good, I mean, does AJ Hinch make that much of a difference? I mean, if you have the players on the field, you're going to be able to be successful. Now, with the Astros, more than the scandal, losing Garrett Cole and losing some of the guys they had in the bullpen hurts a lot more. I mean, Altuve wasn't suspended. Bregman wasn't suspended. None of those guys were suspended. So they're going to be on the field this year. So they're still going to be a very good team. So I can see why a lot of baseball fans don't think that the punishments were enough. I mean, I was upset they didn't take the international signing bonus on the international free agent money. That they should have taken away, no question. That's how they got Yordan Alvarez. That's how, the Yankees, they do better than almost everybody in that pool. They get, really good players. That money's golden. I wish they would have taken that away. So, I mean, while I think that, the penalty was harsh to the people involved, I don't think it affects the franchise that much. $5 million to the franchise is stupid. I know that it's the max that you can fine, but firing the manager, I mean, even if he was a good manager, I mean, you have really, really good players. So I don't know. I mean, I can see why fans don't think that it's too harsh of a penalty, but it's going to see now with the Red Sox, it's going to see what happens to Alex Cora. They're saying he's supposed to get a worse, suspension than Hinch because he's been implicated twice. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with him when it comes down to, how long he's going to be out of baseball. But even so, even if it was the same as Hinch or a year longer than Hinch, whatever it is, I can't see either of those guys being in a dugout anytime soon. I think this hurts them individually. And listen, if you're the manager or the GM of a baseball team and this is going on, because I call bullshit that the GM says he has no idea, and I call bullshit that AJ Hinch is damaging monitors and didn't want this to be done. You're the manager of the baseball team. You tell them you don't want them to do this, that this is jeopardizing jobs, this is jeopardizing the game, whatever it is. It's on your watch. If you know this is going on, you have to take responsibility. And that's why baseball came down on them. But like I said, if it was player driven, the players should have felt something too, because it's not going to affect that franchise as much as people think, in my opinion.
And I will add one thing. A lot of people complaining that they didn't punish the players during the middle of this. And I was reading on Yahoo Sports this afternoon that
they gave them immunity.
Pretty much. And the reason they did was because they determined that if they tried to punish the players, that they would never hold up with a players' union challenge.
I agree. They did not want to deal with the union, which, listen, I mean, I understand you don't want to deal with the union, but I don't know. It would have been a mess. I get it. But, I mean, it's the players that were doing this. I mean, honestly, obviously the managers have to take the fall because it was on their watch. But you're going to have the same players in the lineup next year.
Right.
And, we'll see how much this will, if they don't know the ball's coming, how much it's going to affect them. Because I cannot stress enough how big of an advantage that is. I mean, guys want to bring up PEDs, sure. A guy doing PEDs is an advantage. What the Astros did, whoever stepped in that box, it benefited them. So Alex Rodriguez did PEDs. Does him doing PEDs benefit Brett Gardner? No, it doesn't. It helps Alex Rodriguez. When a guy like Brian McCann, who was at the end of his career and was pretty washed up, gets in the box and he's hearing bangs and whistles, he can hit 300 at home in the playoffs like he did. And that helped everybody. Everybody. I'm telling you, as a Dodger fan, I'm not a Dodger fan, obviously, but watching that video made me mad. I mean, you go watch the video, you hear the whistles loud and clear. And you could see that they're on every pitch. They're on every single pitch. And I'm telling you, Dave, there is definitely something to this buzzer thing. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire.
That just seems a little crazy, though, having a whole buzzer scenario. I mean,
it does. Did you see the Chirinos video?
I didn't. Wait, the Chirinos video? I don't.
So Chirinos he swung at something, and something like fell off of him, and it bounced off the catcher's head, and everyone was saying that it was the authenticity certificate for the bat, but the authenticity sticker for the bat is it's like a piece of paper, it's like a sticker type of thing. So if that, first of all, John Boy talked to somebody who is involved with those, in Major League Baseball, and he said there's no way that was a sticker. And if you watch the video, it bounces off the catcher's head. Bounces. So if it was a sticker, you'd think it would stick or something like that. And Chirinos scurries, picks it up, and throws it in his back pocket. And, that's when the buzzer stuff started coming out. And it hasn't been only from one person. There's been several people around baseball who have been saying that they were doing that kind of stuff. And I believe it. There's a lot of shady. And listen, it's like the little boy who cried wolf. Once they start doing that stuff and they claim, oh, no, we didn't do it. Can you really believe them? Can you really believe them? I mean, they went – the lengths they went to cheat was insane. I mean, installing cameras, having a whole monitor. They basically had a cheating department on how to get this stuff done. I mean, it was it's incredible. And, to me, I think that it is worse than, PEDs. This helps a whole team. This, definitely gives them an edge. More than steroids, I think. If your whole roster was doing steroids, it's a different story. But you have like one guy in the lineup doing steroids, or plus there's people all around baseball doing steroids or that did steroids. The Astros right now seem to be the only team that implemented this kind of technology to steal signs. Now, like I said, I don't think every team is squeaky clean, but I also don't think every team went to the lengths that they went, and they have really good players. So when they're able to do that, like if a team like the Orioles did it, they wouldn't get the results. Because they're not that good. But when you have perennial all-stars up and down the lineup, and what pitch is coming, and you could take pitches and work the count and sit on a pitch, it makes a world of difference. And it drives me crazy to see idiots on Twitter saying, well, you still got to hit it. Well, you still got to hit it. Like, come on. Get a clue. It is a huge, huge advantage.
It is, and it really is unfortunate for the Astros. They are such a good team anyway. I really didn't think they needed to go to these lengths. It just goes to show you their attitude, and I think it's a systematic attitude, in which this is why I think I'm glad that Lunau got ousted in the middle of all this, because I think the arrogance that both he and Inch showed during all of this, even when they were implicated, reveals just the kind of what am I trying to say here? But it shows how much smarter they think they were than everybody else, and
they're smug,
very smug. You can go back to when they went after Roberto Osuna, and everybody's like, "How could you do this?" The guy's a known domestic abuser, and
Dave, the organization. For the organization itself, if you read the Manfred report, he dressed down the whole organization and basically said the culture there is terrible. The culture there, look, you had what the Taubman said, you had the cheating, you had what Gurriel did to Yu Darvish. Plus, the Astro players, like you said, they were so smug, they were so cocky. The antics in the dugout, the carrying the ball to first base, and they're asked about, in post-game press conferences, hey, you guys are whistling this and that, and how smug they were and the way that they acted. I think a lot of, like, if they would have just acted like normal and been like, no, that's ridiculous. We don't do that kind of stuff. But the way that they acted, they were so cavalier, they were so smug, they were so cocky. A lot of this, I love to see them, get it thrown back in their face. And I think not only Yankee fans like it, but fans around baseball notice that. And they're not a likable group. Believe me, they're not a likable group. And I don't know how people would say that, but they're not a likable group. And, just like I said, all the stuff that they were doing. If you watch those press conferences of Hinch and Correa and all those guys, answering questions about it, I mean, if you look back at that now, it's a joke. Like, how could they even look in the mirror? You know, it's a joke. And you see guys like Bregman would go on Twitter and start chirping like fans that get at him and stuff like that. You know, Bregman has been silent. You know, I was surprised in the past, and after seeing his picture after they clinched I believe it was the ALDS. I can't believe a guy's so cocky with a 3-inch piece. But, you know, that's the way he is. And, you know, he's been silent. And, you know, if you saw, I don't know if you saw the video of them at their fan fest, and Bregman was being asked about it, and he looked like a deer in headlights. I equated it to when in The Office, when D'Angelo Vickers had to do the Dundies, and he was just a mess. And that's how Bregman looked. And I loved it. I loved every freaking minute of it. He's every time he hits home run, he's in the dugout putting out 4 fingers like they should have walked me. And the thing that pissed me off the most is whenever Bregman would either get on base or get a hit or take a walk, he'd get back to the dugout, huddle everybody up, and act like he just found the fucking plutonium. I mean, he acted like he knew. He found this, he found that, he found that. And you know what? It's because they were cheating. They weren't just sitting on at the top of the dugout, finding out tips and stuff like that. They had a freaking monitor, and they had people watching and decoding signs and telling them what was coming. So whatever they're going to get this year from opposing fans, opposing teams, they deserve every freaking bit of it. And I can't wait for it. I cannot wait for it. And listen, their division's gotten better. So I'm hoping those guys are gunning for them too, which I think they will be. So they deserve every bit of it.
Very good point about the division. We'll get to that in a moment. But I'm just going to wrap with a couple things. Number one, the Dodgers City Council petitioning, I guess, they motioned in favor of Rob Manfred vacating the Astros championship and then giving the championship to the Dodgers. Now, you can appreciate the gesture, but giving a championship to a team that didn't actually win is kind of weird. So I was not on board with that idea. But vacating the championship was interesting. Still, it's pro sports, so I don't know. I don't blame Rob Manfred for denying both of those ideas. But certainly, it was certainly well-intentioned. But still, I would not have been happy if the Dodgers were given the championship. And if they did, I wouldn't even acknowledge it. I would pretend it didn't happen. I'd be like, we have 5 real championships and one that they kind of handed to us, and I'm like, I wouldn't buy into that. Would you, Cap?
No, I wouldn't want that to happen. Listen, the title's tainted as it is. Everybody's going to remember their championship as, what this scandal is. And a lot of people have brought up that this is one of the, if not the biggest scandals in baseball. Yeah. So even if more comes out, like buzzers or things, more could come out in the future, it could get even worse. But that being said, this isn't college sports. You're not going to vacate things. I think the damage is done. I think, plus, even as I think you being a Dodger fan, I don't think you'd want a championship handed to you in that way. You know what I mean? I don't think you'd want that. No. But I think the damage has been done. I think, the public obviously knows what happened. The sports world knows what happened. So I think the damage has been done. You don't need to vacate it to realize that they had an advantage, and it still took them 7 games to win it with that advantage. You know what I mean? That just shows how good the Dodgers were. Yep. But yeah, I don't think anything should be vacated. Like I said, I think the damage is done. Everyone's going to look at that team as frauds, which they were. So that's how I feel about it.
Well, you definitely will look at that entire 2017 season in a different light now, and it's just now it's like it was tough for me to go back and watch the 2017 World Series anyway. But now it's like. It must be tough. It's going to be tough for the Astros fans to watch that series now because they'll be like, "Yeah, we won, but gosh, it's like, what did?"
If I was an Astros fan that waited that long, like a real Astros fan, half of their fan base still thinks they play in the NL. But if I was like a real Astros fan and I had to wait that long for a title, and this is what came out after, I wouldn't say. I mean, I don't know. It's almost like it's embarrassing. Maybe you're going to get. Obviously, whenever you bring up that title to any opposing fan base, they're going to be like, yeah, but, and that's what's always going to come up. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if embarrass is the right word, but I wouldn't be as cocky about it as I would if, I'd won, obviously, fair and square. But that's not, I'm telling you, Dave, you got to go to YouTube and watch that video of the Kershaw start in Minute Maid Park.
Well, I remember the game, so
yeah. But I'm telling you, Dave, I watched it. I never saw it. I watched it the other night because I watched a lot of the John Boy stuff. But some other guy put a whole compilation together of the games that they were cheating in, and then he had a long one about the World Series. And Dave, you hear it loud. I mean, clear as day. It's clear as day, and you could see they were on every pitch. And Kershaw, aside from pitching at Minute Maid Park, pitched great that World Series. When he pitched home, he pitched fine.
Right.
And plus Minute Maid Park is the size of a cup anyway. I mean, people talk about Yankee Stadium at Fenway Park. Minute Maid Park has it's an asinine park. It has 2 short porches, Crawford boxes, which is 300 feet away from home plate. Even the right field porch is short, and then you have a wall that's like a bridge with a train. It's just really fucking moronic the way that their ballpark. I mean. And they have a lot of right-handed hitters, so it benefits them.
It's really interesting how these things seem so obvious now, but we didn't catch them at the time. I do think that's very, very unusual. Like these seem then how is this not so more obvious? But isn't it funny how that happens? It's like you hear whistling, you hear banging of trash cans, and
well, the Yankees had brought the whistling thing up, and AJ Hinch said in his press conference, like the smug prick that he is, he said, "Oh, if I knew it was going to get in their heads, we would have practiced that in spring training." Well, you probably did fucking practice that in spring training, you cheating fuck.
Why are you cursing?
Very. No, I'm pretty. You're right. It's probably You don't just suddenly happen upon something like this. These things
that's why I can't, and that's why I couldn't listen. The two guys, and you know this, I couldn't stand Alex Cora. I think he just wanted to make me want to punch him in the face. I hated Alex Cora, and I hated AJ Hinch because of his smug, attitude towards everything. And both of those guys are out of baseball for maybe ever, and I couldn't be happier. Screw both of them. You know what I mean? And you're right, 100%. When you're watching it, you're like, it's hard to pick up, obviously in the moment. But the Yankees did say something about it. They said something about how they heard whistling and things like that. And I know even, a lot of our base coaches, Phil Nevin, threatened to beat one of the hitting, I believe it was the hitting coach of the Astros, threatened to beat his ass. He told Alex Bregman, he goes, "Tell your hitting coach I'm going to beat his ass." I think it was the hitting coach. But, it was mentioned. The Yankees brought it up that that the Astros were doing something. And I feel like it's been the worst kept secret among we didn't know it, but I think people in the baseball world, they knew it. I mean, Trevor Bauer went in detail about what they knew. Trevor Bauer knew what the concoction was that the pitchers were using to get more spin rate, and it's proof, man. I saw Garrett Cole's spin rate when he was in Pittsburgh to when he went to Houston. Dave, it almost jumped 100%. It's insane.
So wait, you're saying that there are substances involved too now?
So this is what Trevor Bauer said, and don't quote me because I don't have it in front of me, but they used rosin, pine tar, and they boiled Coca-Cola, all that in a Coke can. And they made this substance that they put on their fingers that allows you to get more spin rate on the ball. So Bauer came out with that. I mean, and plus, if you watch, there's another video when Danny Farquhar was pitching to them. He heard the banging, and he called the catcher to the mound because he kind of figured out what was going on. And the Astros panicked so much, they ripped the monitor off the wall, threw it in a closet, and everybody scurried to clear that area because they didn't want to get caught. So, I mean, it was kind of known in the baseball world. A lot of, whenever they went up to Minute Maid Park, people were changing their signs, this and that. But I don't know if they knew it was to this extent. And now that the public knows, I mean, it makes it a lot worse. But yeah, if you look up, you just Google what Bauer said about the substances. It's crazy, how they make it.
It's a different topic.
I'm sure a lot of pitchers do that stuff.
Everybody does stuff with substances.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think that's
I think that's why that's gotten glossed over. That nobody's really taken that to heart, because I agree with you. I think a lot of pitchers do stuff, and it is what it is. I mean, that's all around the game. But what the batters did. Now, the funniest thing is Mr. Police the Game, Mr. Do Everything Right. There's articles from 2017, 2018 about how bad sign stealing is and how he wants to clean up the game. Justin Verlander, now listen, I'm sure he's been told by Astros management, maybe even baseball, not to comment on it right now, but he has been silent. silent. Whenever something happens in baseball, he has to open up his big fat mouth every time and put his opinion out there. He's been hiding in a freaking hole. He hasn't said a word.
Yeah, that's very telling. That's very telling. It's always interesting when the biggest mouths don't talk, and we have seen this in politics. I won't elaborate, but we've also seen. But when you see it in sports, it says his biggest statement is when you say something. When you don't say something.
And I listen. I know a lot of the players have been advised not to say anything, and I also think it's kind of bullshit how the owner had to tell the players, "Oh, when spring training comes, you have to sit down and apologize." Like, they should have. The hearing what Altuve said at that press conference was an absolute joke. I mean, I don't know if you heard it, but they'd asked him about it, and he was like, well, so-and-so, but we have a good team. We're going to be in the World Series next year. It's us against the world now. Everyone's battling.
Us against the world.
Because you cheated. It's not like you're these lovable underdogs now. You cheated. We'll be in the World Series next year. Congrats to the Nationals. They won it all, but we'll be in the World Series next year. And it was listen, I think the worst job in the world right now is trying to be an Astros PR guy or an Astros social media guy. That's a very tough job right now.
Well, they kind of did some of that to themselves too. Like I said, the way they handled the Osuna scenario was absolutely. They could have done this a lot better. They could have came out and they could have made a statement, whatever. But they had the fan fest and they told the players not to comment on it. So obviously, that's the question that every reporter is going to ask, and they just kept repeating the same thing. And like I said, Alex Bregman looked like a little sheepdog. Like he's usually so cocky, his bravado. Right. He looked like a lost puppy. And it's just so funny to see how those guys were so cocky. You got Correa doing the Hulk Hogan around first base as he hits a home run. Those guys, they're nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. Now that the owner has to say, "Oh, I'm making my players apologize." Like, no shit, they have to apologize. I mean, if they were caught red-handed in one of the worst cheating scandals in all of sports, they got to say something. Yeah. I mean, now I think you mentioned this already, but I think the rest of baseball is going to be out for blood anytime they play the Astros. And I love the report that Dodger fans are going to the first Angel series, the home series, not the first one in Houston, but the first Angel series against the Astros, just so they could boo the Astros. I think that's so petty.
But good for them.
Hysterical.
Good for them. Good for them. But I agree with you, and I think a lot of it, with some of the stuff that happens. Yeah. I mean, obviously, when somebody gets busted for PEDs, you have the couple people who come out and they voice their displeasure with it. With this, it sounds like the outrage was league-wide.
Yeah,
people
exactly.
taking to social media, and it was a lot louder than some of the other stuff. And that makes
other players were very clear about their feelings about this, and there was no diplomacy involved in how they expressed themselves about the situation. And Cap, how people were concerned that players didn't want to out their own, blah blah blah. Stand up for the union. You didn't see any of that with these players. They were very quick to point the finger at the Astros.
100%. You're 100% right. And, I think even, we see it on social media, but I'm sure around the league, the guys who don't tweet and the guys who haven't, voiced it to the public, they're pissed off about it too. Yeah. I'm sure, and you might have saw it. I haven't seen much from like the Dodgers pitchers, but I think Darvish might have said something, but he's not even the Dodger anymore. But I'm sure those guys are fuming. I'm sure Kershaw is fuming. I'm sure Kershaw's sitting there looking at his postseason ERA, which people knock, and he's like, well, shit, I went to Minute Maid Park and gave up, 6 runs in 3 or 4 innings because they knew what pitch I was throwing. It probably pisses him off too. So I'm sure that 100%, I'm sure this is league-wide, and, I think they are going to have a target on their back. And I think it's league-wide also because just the way they handled it, just the way they would act and, the cocky attitudes and things like that. And I think a lot of the league are, I don't know if they were really liked by the rest of the league to begin with, but this, on top of it, a lot of people are pissed off and upset. And it's going to be interesting to see when they face some of these teams that have these outspoken pitchers. Like Clevenger basically said, he said, I can throw at somebody. Stroman was pissed off. Obviously, Trevor Bauer was pissed off. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more pitchers out there that are going to make the Astros, play a little dodgeball this year.
Yeah. It is, and I think the crowds at these games will be ruthless.
Oh, yeah.
It's
And the thing that sucks is they don't come to New York until September. But they play, Yankees go up to Houston in May, and I already looked it up. A flight and hotel in Houston for
May
the May 15th. Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm trying to, but I just don't know. I don't know if I would have to maybe accumulate some bail money before I go up there. But no, I mean, it's a flight and hotel is only for like $400,
right.
And I would love to do it, and I think that we would get a lot of New Yorkers up there, but I think it'd be a fun trip. So I'm looking into that, but they don't come here until September 21st. But I tell you what, people think that it's going to be forgotten about, or we're in the heat of the baseball season, it's not going to be as volatile. Believe me, I know season ticket holders. I know they're not giving up their tickets for that game. Everybody wants to go to that game. They're bringing their trash can signs. They're going to give that team holy hell, and I think they're going to get that in a lot of different parks they go to. I really do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And let me just talk about collateral damage.
Sure.
We talked about the Red Sox already, so we kind of exhausted that. But the Mets, now they just got unlucky. But I guess this is a two-pronged question. Number one, was it a good idea to hire Beltran in the first place? He didn't have any managerial experience to begin with. And two, was it unfair for them to oust him in the midst of this when there was no actual penalty put on him at that point in time?
So I thought it was a good hire. I thought Carlos Beltran is a bright guy. I think he relates well to, other players. And he was highly regarded around baseball as, being that kind of guy. And, I don't know if it was because he was, doing the kind of stuff he was doing in Houston to help players or what. But, I thought he was a good hire by the Mets. I thought, like I said, I think, they have a relatively young team there. And I think he was a good fit with those young players. I really did. I think even with no managerial experience, I think he's a very bright guy. I think he knows the game really well. And for them, I think that, he would have been really good there. I mean, he's played for the Yankees, he played for the Mets. Mm-hmm. He can handle the New York media. And I thought it was a good hire by them. I've always said I thought it was. And unfortunately for the Mets, they had nothing to do with it. But also for the Mets, I don't know if you heard the conference call with Brody, for them to sit there and say, oh, we never asked them about it or we didn't know about it. Listen, this was a known thing for months. And if you didn't ask him about what was happening in Houston, if there'd be any, collateral damage, and you weren't doing your job. I mean, Brody, I think, has done a horrible job as it is. There's people who think he did a good job, which is asinine to me. But, to not ask those kind of questions, who knows? They could be just, lying to the public. They could have asked, and they could have just rolled the dice and said, fuck it, we like this guy. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good hire. And as far as, firing him, for me, I'm not a Met fan. So I originally I thought, he'll be able to weather this storm. He has to come out, apologize. Once the season starts, I think he'll be able to weather the storm and, people will get over it. But I have had Met fans tell me, they don't want that kind of guy leading their team. It's going to put the Mets in a PR light that they don't deserve. It's going to be questioned at every spring training. It's going to be questioned, a lot. And the players don't deserve to answer questions for it. And then I'd read recently that, guys like, I believe it was DeGrom or some of the other guys were, pissed off that they were doing that. And basically they didn't want a guy like that leading them, a liar and a cheater, leading them. So, if that's how, the fans who follow the team every day and they feel about it, then, hey, then I agree. I think Evan was kind of where I was, where I thought maybe he'd be able to weather the storm. But, hearing from my Met fan friends, they were basically like, no, get him out. We can't have somebody like that running our team. And I've had friends from the beginning of the scandal basically say it's not going to bode well for the organization. And that's what they're looking at. The organization did not, it's not, they had nothing to do with it. And then, all the bad PR light was brought on them, and that's kind of shitty for them.
Yeah, that's where I was at with it. Yeah. It's just an unfortunate scenario. Like, I think even though I wasn't clean. I didn't really have a real confidence in Beltran's managerial acumen, but I did think he deserved the chance at least, and this kind of undermined that opportunity. Now let's bring in Ari to the show. Welcome, Ari. How's it going tonight?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Look who's back in town.
Back in town. We got kids everywhere around here. We got 3 kids still awake, but we're doing the show. They're supposed to be going
at
to
11
sleep.
o'clock at night.
They're supposed to be going to sleep, or they're supposed to be asleep. They are not asleep, but hopefully they'll get there soon.
Good luck over there.
Yeah, good luck, man. For sure.
So it's good to be back. I was checking my Skype log, and I haven't had a call on this podcast since last July.
Wow.
So, things have changed on the home front since then.
Yeah.
But it's good to be back.
How's the little one doing?
Back.
Like, how's the littlest one doing?
She's doing good. She's one of the 3 that's awake right now, but that's more to be expected than the other 2.
Oh, sure. Sure.
But yeah, but she's doing well. She's 4 months old.
Beauty. Love it. How do you like Cap on the Skype scenario?
It's completely different. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it only took 2 seconds to set up. I thought it would be like this whole process, so I'm glad I did it.
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, this will be a fun setup for the foreseeable future. Ari, I'll catch you up on what we've been talking about. We obviously been talking about the Astros and the collateral damage and just the huge scandal that they were involved in. And then we closed with how it affected the Mets, as you just heard calling in here. There's a lot to unpack. We wanted to get your thoughts on it too. So what was your takeaway from the entire Astros saga?
Well, I obviously have different views on the Mets part of it, but just the global part of it is it's hard to draw these lines is the problem. I mean, this is against the rules. And it's so elaborate and so premeditated. And you hear from pitchers who say unanimously they would rather pitch to a guy who's been doing steroids than pitch to a guy who knows what pitch is coming. So this is a big, big impact, or at least it's perceived by the pitchers to be a huge impact on the game. So, and the Astros weren't just, it's old as time, the idea of stealing signs with the runner on second base, without technology. You try to figure out what the signs are, and everybody tries to steal them, and the catchers know that, and that's why they use different signs, because they know people are going to relay them. But to use technology and to figure out the signs and to also relay them on every pitch, even with the bases empty or with no runner on second base, it's every single pitch from the beginning of the game, and it impacts the game immensely. On the other hand, they are putting the fingers down for everybody to see. So to expect teams not to look at something that's right there on the field is difficult. So I can kind of see the argument that maybe this is okay, and what we need to do, not okay, but it's to be expected. And maybe instead of saying, hey, don't look, don't point cameras in that direction, we need to figure out a better way to get signals from coaches to players and from players to players that can't be intercepted. I mean, the NFL has figured this out. The NFL has headsets. They have some coaches in a booth. They have the head coach is on a headset. The quarterback has speakers in his helmet. They figured it out. They get, the quarterback calls out in a bunch of signals. Nobody knows what they are on the other side. He says them out loud. Everybody can hear them, but nobody knows what they mean. Baseball's different. Obviously, it's not as complicated. It's one of 3 or 4 pitches that the pitcher throws, but you can disguise it. You can have pitches called in the opposite direction. You can have technology. So I think what the lesson here is that they need to figure out a better way than the way they've done it for the last 100 years of getting the pitcher and catcher on the same page of what pitch is being thrown, because the catcher's putting fingers down, and to expect them to just not look at it is unreasonable. So,
but you can look at it. You just can't set up center field cameras and have a monitor in the dugout and bang garbage cans. I mean, you could look at it. You can have a guy at second base look at it. We're going to have a guy from the dugout try and look at it. But
I mean, the rest of us who are watching the game can look at it. Like, of course, they're broadcasting the game to us, and the broadcaster tells us what pitch is coming. They zoom in, And, right before he throws the pitch, the analyst says, fastball coming. And he knows.
Yeah.
So you can make a rule that says you can't do that, but it's right there. It's plain as day.
When you're watching a football game and Tony Romo says, they're set up to do this, that doesn't mean that they should have a feed in an NFL stadium and have somebody on the sideline, do that kind of stuff. It's different, when you're watching a game as a fan. You can obviously look at the fingers, but there's no excuse for what they did. They literally set up a cheating department with a whole cheating scheme to go along with it. It's one thing if you guys on second base, or if you want to look and see what guys are tipping. They had a center field camera on the signs, decoded the signs, banged on garbage cans, whistled. They knew what pitch was coming. I agree with you that I think baseball needs to figure out a way to eliminate this, that kind of stuff.
Need to. The solution is not just to continue to tell people to not look. To tell people don't point cameras.
They're gonna look. Yeah. They're gonna look. People from the dugout are gonna try and get a peek, but they took it to a way, way, way different level. That's just something that I don't know if other teams. I'm sure other teams are trying to get an edge as well. Like I said earlier in the podcast, I don't think every team is squeaky clean, but I also don't know if any team did it to that extent with monitors and garbage cans and whistling and maybe potentially buzzers. You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what other people are doing. So that the prevention going forward is not just to put up a rule that says don't look at what I'm doing. It's to change what everyone does. That's going forward. So, but given the way signals are relayed currently, what they did basically blows up the whole game. If you know what pitch is coming, you're playing a completely different game than we've been playing for 100 years. And so
I'm happy you said that, because a lot of people think that it's not, you still got to hit it. And that's something Dave and I touched on earlier in the podcast.
Yep.
That,
of course, people who either a fastball's coming, you got to hit it. But
exactly.
But if you don't know a fastball, the whole reason
it helps you lay off pitches. It helps your walk rate, helps your contact rate. It is a huge, huge advantage. And I just, if you watch a baseball, if you play baseball, you should know how big of an advantage that is. People to say, you still got to hit it, or, this is on the same level as PDEs. Personally, I don't think it's on the same level as PDEs. I don't. I think that, if Alex Rodriguez steps in the box doing steroids, that helps Alex Rodriguez. If, Brian McCann steps in the box, if Alex Bregman steps in the box, or whoever steps in the box for Houston, what they're doing helps the whole roster. I think, like you said, it with the integrity of the game, and it's a whole, like you said, they're playing a whole different ball game. It's a different sport. It's like you're playing a video game, and a fastball's coming.
Right. If you're playing a video game with your friend who's sitting in the room with you, and you can watch his fingers and what button he presses,
exactly.
It's a different game than if you can't. Than if you're playing against the computer and you don't know what the computer is going to throw. The whole reason pitchers have repertoires of multiple pitches is because they're trying to fool you.
Yes, and that's I think half the battle stepping into the box is figuring out what's coming. And if you know what's coming, that's more than half the battle.
It's the rare pitcher. Like I see people refer to Mariano Rivera. Like everyone knew what pitch. Everyone knew what pitch he was throwing. Well, yeah, but he's
from
guy.
A different planet.
He's him, and most guys are not him. And if you have to be him in order to get hitters out, then the games are never going to end because no one's ever going to get out.
I agree. And I see people posting those memes like, they knew what was coming. Like, come on, don't be that dense.
Like, if you're a guy that can throw one pitch and get everybody out on it, that's great. But there's not enough pitchers who can do that to have a sport.
Right.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
Good call. It just is too bad. Like we also were saying earlier in the show, Ari, that it really makes you look at the 2017 World Series in a completely different light now. Even as an Astro fan, you're like, wow, well, you're not going to apologize for winning the title, but it's a different feel now than just if before we knew about all this.
Yeah, and if you people are digging into home road splits and seeing kind of what effect you can't obviously there's a home field advantage that's not due to cheating that is, we can't quantify it, but we know it exists to some 100%. Extent, and so you can't say that that people's home road split should be equal, because people's home road splits are not equal. People play better at home.
Yep.
It's true. But, at some point, to some extent, if every single hitter is, it has on-base percentage 300 points higher at home, then it calls into question everything. And then you got people saying, well, the Dodgers lost games at home. Well, okay. So
baseball team lose games at home.
So what? Teams can lose games at home and still win the World Series if the game, if the games are on the level.
This past October, every team lost their game at home.
Yeah.
So
right, exactly.
And I'm sure you guys saw the splits in 2017 for the ALCS, right? Like how guys were hitting like 100 on the road and 300, 350. I mean, Brian McCann was hitting 033, I believe, on the road. Comes home, he's hitting 300. I mean, you got to be kidding me. That's not. I don't think that's.
And by the way, not a peep out of that guy. Guy who is the police of the sport of playing the game the right way.
Him and Justin Verlander, Mr. Make the game, Mr. Play the game the right way. Not a word from either of those. I mean, I understand Verlander's still in the league and McCann isn't. So yeah, not a peep from McCann.
Not a word out of him. He was the police. He was like, he was running the show. Play the game the right way. Well, okay.
Now, did you see? Now, Fitz, I tried to explain to Dave earlier. Did you see the video of when Kershaw pitched in Minute Maid Park, where they were doing the whistling?
No.
You got to go on YouTube and see it, man. It is so egregious. You hear it loud and clear. Either it's a straight whistle for a fastball, or it's a do-do-do-do-do-do type whistle for a breaking pitch. And you see it. I'm telling you, the guy made a video. It is so – there's pitches that you would think – like, how nasty Kershaw is. He throws a pitch, and either a guy is right on it or he takes it for a ball because he knows what's coming. And then Gurriel hit a 3-run homer off him to tie the game. I mean, it is as plain as day. You hear they stopped the banging, and they started doing the whistling.
And Kershaw has his reputation of, he chokes in the big games.
Dave and I brought that up too.
You're like, that brings that.
I want to bring up something no one's bringing up, guys. No, because I wasn't here. But yeah, so, but it's like you're messing with people's legacies. You're messing with Yu Darvish. Yeah. You're messing with his paycheck.
Yes,
there's pending free agents in these World Series.
And
games.
As you know, like and in World Series games, even though they are a small sample, people weigh them heavily. Look at a guy like David Freese, who got like a contract from playing good in the World Series. Like people weigh those.
I mean, how much money did Joe Kelly get because of a World Series?
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. And Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, Steve Pearce. I mean, look at that. Right. I mean, guys.
And then so the opposite must be true too. Guys who perform poorly, people that's given an outsized weight as well.
100%. I mean, Clayton Kershaw, like you said, he has the legacy, and people knock him for what he does in the postseason.
Kershaw himself, people are talking about he's done.
Yep, and you think
a big reason for that is the postseason stuff.
Yes, and you think he's sitting at home looking at his postseason ERA today and saying, wow, I lasted 3 or 4 innings in Minute Maid Park and gave up 6 runs. I wonder why. You know what I mean? Because if you look at his numbers that series at home, he was really, really good. But as soon as he went to Minute Maid Park, he couldn't get out of the 4th inning.
Yeah, because he can't blow you away. And his game is deception and amazing breaking stuff. And if you know the breaking stuff is coming, then you don't swing at it.
I'm telling you, I'll send you guys the link in a group chat later or tomorrow. You watch this video, it is glaring. You hear, as clear as day.
Let me ask you this follow-up question. I think I know the answer to this. The first part, are the Dodgers have got to be absolutely furious at this, but then I'm going to share with my feelings of how this affects me as a Dodger fan. And people were asking me, does this make you feel better? Better is hard to really quantify, but it does bring a little bit of closure to what was going on. Because I definitely, during Game 5? Game 5, I was so mystified. Like, how could this have happened? They were up by so many runs. There was only like a couple innings left, and how could this have happened? And now I know, right? So
that's a great point. It makes it a lot easier to come back in games, and you should never win when you're doing that shit.
It's insane. Like that should not have happened. With the best bullpen around, and they, it's like some of those guys were lights out too. I mean, Maeda was, they brought him in, and Altuve just smacks. I don't know over the first pitch or the second pitch, and he just cleared it over that really absurd Crawford boxes. You remember that? But
don't get me started on the Crawford boxes.
But you think it's like when you know what the pitch is, of course you're going to have a really good handle on it. It would be like if you were driving and you knew exactly what the turns were and everything at every point of either a race or of just basic driving, and you knew that, and even if you even knew like, well, this car is going to come in at this point, and then you can turn around him, and it's just like, or when you know if they told you like a mile ahead of time that there are cops at every point, in your drive, it's a totally different ball game. Totally different ball game.
Yeah, it's like if you're the defense in football and you know it's going to be a run or a pass, that's the game.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the game, absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, a lot of pitchers, there's some guys who will just try to blow you away or whatever, but there's a lot of pitchers who do pitch on deception. And obviously a lot of the best pitchers in baseball do have 2 or 3 pitches. And, that if you're sitting on a certain pitch, you're going to be successful. It bothers me how some fans out there can't see how big of an advantage that really is. Yeah. If you played the sport, or even if you watch the sport and you realize how, like Fid said, it is they're playing a completely different game. Yeah. And as you as a Dodger fan, me as a Yankee fan, obviously I'm extremely annoyed when I look at the home road splits because that team couldn't wait to get out of New York, and then when we go there and listen, everybody brings up the scores in Houston were low. Who cares if it's one sign, if it's one pitch into what was coming? How do you know that didn't lead to a run that made us lose the game? They don't have to score 20 runs a game for it to benefit them. All it takes is one sign in a close game like that, and boom, it's a different ball game. So for people to bring that up, I don't want to hear that.
Here's what's really interesting about all of this. How many games did they lose in the postseason leading up to last year when they finally lost a World Series to the Nationals? That's an interesting query. They lost the series to the Red Sox, right, in 2018.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was Cora.
We're waiting to find out what the Red Sox are
doing. That is
right?
the really fascinating aspect.
Exactly.
Because I am like, are they doing it too? Because
the thing is, what I want to ask you guys is when obviously Cora was one of the main proponents for what happened there.
Yeah.
When they play the Red Sox, do you think he did any kind of measures to make sure that doesn't happen there because he knows exactly what's going on, or does he not care that they're doing it because he's doing the same thing? What do you guys think?
That's a great call. I don't know.
What could you do? The only thing you could do if you know the other side is doing it is to try to make your signs harder to guess. There's nothing else you could do.
That would seem right. Like you mix up the signs where instead of 1 is now like a curveball.
But like you said, if you knew say in 2017 the Yankees didn't know, so they just kept doing their whatever they need to do. But like you said, since Cora knew, he might have been able to implement something to help protect against that, or he might have been doing something himself. Look, we were going to wait to see what the Red Sox did. I'm not going to.
Also, at some point, and I forget when it was, baseball had caught wind of this and started putting people in the replay rooms.
Yeah, but did you hear what they said?
Well, which thing?
With the Red Sox said that they had their guy. Somebody said the Red Sox had their guy in their back pocket.
Yeah, I guess that's easy to do, right?
I heard that on a podcast or something. They said, though that didn't make a difference. The guy that was in the Red Sox thing, they had him in their back pocket.
That's an official, right? That guy, that's not really distinct in my mind from paying off. Like, you have that guy in your back pocket, you might as well have the umpires in your back pocket.
Yeah, so that's what I think. Different. I think we're going to figure out, granted, I don't know. I feel like Major League Baseball wants the scandal to end here. I feel like that it's already, put a black eye in the game. And there's a lot more. Yeah.
But the one thing is, Cap, I don't think that the rest of the teams are going to allow it to end there. And the Dodgers won't. The Dodgers will not. They're going to continue.
I'm just wondering what they're going to come out. What are they going to come out with the Red Sox?
It's very interesting, right? Because you start looking at that World Series like, well, they were on top of every pitch in that World Series too, and it's like, well. The one thing that
they never struck out. They put the ball in play all the time, and they walked. I think their top 5 batters had OPSs of ridiculous. It was Benintendi, Bogarts, Betts, Martinez.
Yeah.
I know I'm missing somebody in there. might have been the top 4 or whatever. But they had Devers maybe. I don't know if it was Devers that year, but I know they had guys with like their OPSs were extremely high.
Well, how about JBJ?
And
no,
he sucks. No, he's trash.
No, but in that series, he was great though.
Oh, I know he was. And you know what? In that series, I mean, I watched it kind of with one eye open, but it seemed like, Betts didn't do much. I think in that extra inning game, I don't know if he had a hit or he had one hit. It was guys like Pierce and like you said, JBJ and guys like that.
Yeah. Guys who are not pitched carefully.
Right.
Yeah,
so
Betts did not
finally
start getting. Yeah, Betts and Martinez did not really start to get going until the game 5. It felt like it took a while. It took a while for them to finally get going. So,
but I mean, you as a
but it's like
fan,
clutch hit after clutch hit after clutch hit.
Exactly.
With and then we talked about it afterwards, like it was some kind of strategy, like they're some kind of they figured something out.
You're right.
It sounds like eventually we're going to find out they did figure something out.
They did.
I mean, if the Red Sox, if it comes out that they did something egregious like the Astros were doing, I mean, I can only imagine. Obviously both teams beat us, but both teams beat the Dodgers in the World Series. I can only imagine, and the Dodgers haven't won a World Series in a while. So I can only imagine, like, the fans, the players being like, because, listen, CC Sabathia won a World Series, and he's still infuriated about what happened in 2017. He's like, we should have been in the World Series in 2017. He said, I retired, and I should have another potential title in my back pocket. And he was all pissed off about it. So I can only imagine, like, the Dodger fans, the Dodger management, the Dodger owners, the Dodger players, like, if it comes out to the Red Sox where, in the wrong big time as well.
That's pretty rough.
I mean, for you guys to lose back-to-back years to teams that were doing, garbage shit like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that would really bug me.
And it does. Like it does, but it does frustrate me. In all honesty, I think back on that. It's like, really now, this is why we lost two years in a row. Like that definitely puts that into light as well.
What do you think the Red Sox could have been doing? I mean, do you think it could be something that mirrors what the Astros did, or do you think it just what do you think they could have been doing? Do you think they'll come out the investigation and basically be like, we didn't find anything, but because, or not anything, but they did something? What do you think? If you
remember the Apple Watch scandal in the middle of the season, I think it was probably something like that. It wasn't necessarily TV cameras at that point in time, but it might have been like there was an Apple Watch in the dugout, or somebody had an iPhone in the dugout, and then they would probably relay the signal that way. So obviously I despise the Red Sox. Right.
And, the Astros in, a couple of years are going to be irrelevant to me because, they're, yes, they're good right now, but, eventually that's not going to be around.
They have been hit with some serious penalties, though, down the road.
I'll always hate the Red Sox. So for the Red Sox, if it comes out and their title in 2018 could look really tainted, I'll be elated. Yeah. And I hated Alex Cora. I hated AJ Hinch. I hate the Astros right now. So for both of those teams to be, putting their on the fire pretty much, I mean, this offseason couldn't have gotten any better for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got Garrett Cole. We're
going to get to that.
Both of their titles are tainted. So, I mean, and listen, like I told Dave before, that, yes, I hate both of their teams. Obviously, I hate the Red Sox a lot more. So I will dance on their graves. But if my team hasn't been implicated in anything, so I'm going to, have my fun with it. But if the Yankees are implicated, I'll eat my crow. If I'm going to dish it, I'll have to be able to take it.
It's a very good point. We don't know who else is doing this. I do want to make a point about all of this that my friend Sports Pope made to me in text that I just hadn't even really connected with everything before. But he said that all of this is a result of instant replay being involved in baseball. And I'm like, no way. I'm like,
it's true.
That's
I mean, they put the technology there and then told the teams not to use it.
And you know what? That's totally it. Like this, you would never have seen anything like this before they started doing instant replay, which is not even that good. So it's like, to me, it's like, is it worth all this? Should we continue going on about it?
The problem, it's not strictly speaking instant replay, but it's instant replay with manager challenges. Mm-hmm. If they didn't have manager challenges, if they just had replay initiated by the umpires, then the teams wouldn't have to have replay feeds because the teams would have nothing to do with it. So you can still have instant replay. Just take the manager and the rest of take the team out of it and have instant replay amongst the officials, and you can still have it and then not have the technology.
I think they need to move on this. This needs to be a serious movement. I mean, honestly,
I think what you're going to see, they're going to come up with some kind of technological solution similar to how the NFL calls plays now, where there's an earpiece and a microphone,
right.
And I think you're gonna see an eventual shift away from the catcher calling the game, and either the pitcher's going to call the game or someone in the dugout is going to call the game.
I think someone in the dugout. I agree, because you can have them. It's the same thing.
The only reason the catcher called the game historically was because that's the only way to communicate the signs,
right,
without the batter seeing it.
Right. I mean, right now, a lot of depends on some catchers, but I watch the Yankees. Gary looks in the dugout a lot. Gary does call a good game, but he gets help from the dugout as well. So I think somebody in the dugout will have an earpiece, the pitcher will have an earpiece, and the catcher will have an earpiece. Obviously, needs to know what's coming. I think that's going to be the way that that they need to do it, because the way they're doing it is antiquated right now.
It's really exactly right. Exactly. It existed because it was the best way at the time to hide from the batter what pitch was coming, and now it no longer is. We have better ways, and so and that's why catchers have historically called games, not because they're so great at it, not because they're better than the pitcher or the coaches at it, just because they're the ones sitting behind the batter that he can't see.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea. Like, this move to like wireless communication.
I think in college the coaches call the game from the dugout. I think that's true, but yeah, I think there's going to be some kind of technological solution similar to what the NFL does, where the dugout calls the pitches. Okay. And so you're going to be taking away two pretty important historically things that catchers have done, which could, have ripple effects throughout the game of what kind of catchers you see. If they don't have to call the game and they don't have to frame pitches for the umpire anymore, then they can concentrate on other defensive aspects of their game and also concentrate on offensive aspects of their game.
Here's the thing about that, Fids. The thing is, the catcher does not make the call on his own anyway. He's getting signs from the dugout regardless. Like, that's all.
The pitcher says yes or no. Right. The pitcher shakes his head.
So all he's doing is just saying what the dugout told him. So why even take all you're really doing at this point is cutting out the middleman.
I mean, I don't think in today's game the dugout is calling every pitch. But maybe critical pitches, important pitches. Some catches.
That'll be an interesting debate. I don't honestly know. But
I think I don't think there are signs for that going from the dugout to the catcher on every pitch. It would take a long time. We'd know, like, as people who watch the game, we'd know about it. But I think going forward, you're gonna have just audio communication between the dugout, and then you'll have cameras pointed at the pitching coach reading his lips, and that'll be the next camera.
Well, then you put a mask
doing the
on,
football
or you
thing.
cover your face.
He'll wear a surgical mask, or he'll hold the baseball.
They'll be doing the football thing. He'll be holding the glove over his face, or one of those posters.
Which
they'll
they
have
do.
These giant,
they do that,
yeah, exactly. They'll have a giant poster
glove
with
over the
forced
face on
pictures on them,
now.
maybe like a happy face and a baseball and something.
But I agree that eliminates whatever we have going on right now.
Yeah,
and that eliminates what the Astros are doing. What are they going to do?
That and you take the technology out of the game on the team side as well.
Yeah.
As far as video monitoring, you could institute a rule that says players can look at whatever video they want before the game and after the game, but during the game they can't look at anything. You can't go back and look at video of your swing. You can't go back and look at video of what the pitcher's throwing. No iPads in the dugout. No monitors anywhere. Play the game and do your video stuff before and after.
There you go.
Right.
I'm with it. Okay, so I think this has been a very far-reaching topic. Let's just get some quick hitters on the Mets angle on this, Fids, because I know that hits you fairly closely. What's your thought on how the Mets responded to to everything, really?
I came in on the tail end of what Cap was saying, and so I heard like the half of it. I kind of agree with where I had the same mental progression of where I was to where I am. I do think that after all, it's the Mets, right? There's going to be another story and another story and another story every day coming out of spring training. And I think by the second week of March, we wouldn't be talking about this because it's the Mets, and there'd be another scandal, and Cespedes does something in camp, and he rides into camp on a camel, and then Noah Syndergaard does something, and all the usual Mets crap would have overtaken this, I think, fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But so I think they could have weathered, and the Mets do have a tendency to let the media run their team.
Yeah, I hate that.
And
I really think they can't
that.
make their own decisions. I find that very irritating.
They lack that because they manage the team for the back page and for the talk show host instead of
so do the
making
Giants,
a decision.
for that matter. They stink at that sort of thing. Just Gettleman also stinks, but
and also. They're not. We know who's really running the Mets, and he doesn't know anything.
Right.
And luckily, he'll be out of there, but it's going to be 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And then so they don't have confidence probably in their decisions, and they're managing reactively to the media, and I don't like that.
Which is stupid because the media a lot of the media don't know crap about that team.
There are people that they should listen to, though. Like if Jacob deGrom has a problem with this, right. If Pete Alonso has a problem with it, if their actual players have a problem with it, that's something you need to respond to. And if that's true, and we're not going to know because they wouldn't make it public. But if that's true, if
didn't something come out how deGrom was not happy with what Beltran did?
Hear that, but that's certainly possible. And if that's Marcus Stroman said stuff. Stroman was talking about Alex Cora on Twitter after this all broke. And if he thinks that about Alex Cora, he probably thinks it about Carlos Beltran. It's the same thing. Though, I mean, the only difference is Alex Cora actually said bad stuff about Marcus Stroman, which Carlos Beltran didn't do. That Marcus Stroman doesn't play the game the right way, which is hilarious now. But given how we know Alex Cora plays the game now. But
isn't it just so funny how hypocritical like Cora and the Astros guys are and how stupid they look now? Like you got to have some semblance of a clue.
If you know you're doing that stuff, don't mouth off about what other guys are doing.
I know.
Keep your mouth shut. But so I think they could have weathered the PR storm. But if they had a real problem with the players on the team, then they had to make a move. And, it wasn't like this is the best manager in baseball that they had to fire because of this. This is, yes, a beloved former player of the franchise, but a rookie manager who is probably not going to make any difference between him and the guy that replaces him on how the team does. So the cost of firing Carlos Beltran and replacing him with Luis Rojas is how many wins? 1, 2, none, maybe. And so the benefit of this is that they get to wash their hands of this scandal. They get to say they did something. They get unity on the team amongst the players. And the cost is probably not very much because Carlos Beltran is an unknown quantity as a manager. This isn't like they had it's not like the Astros where they had to fire A.J. Hinch, who everyone thought was brilliant. And same, with the Red Sox and Alex Cora, we don't know how brilliant they are now because we know they were cheating, but at least they had a track record of being of what we thought was being a good manager. Carlos Beltran didn't have that at all. So what are they costing themselves by firing him, especially since they came to a quote-unquote mutual agreement and they don't have to pay him? So they're really not costing themselves anything at all because you don't know what he is as a manager, or what his wins above replacement are compared to the guy they hired to replace him. You don't know. So it didn't really cost them anything to fire him other than they look like they're reactionary to the media. But, in terms of just baseball on the field, I think it probably didn't cost anything, and it probably has intangible benefits in the clubhouse amongst the players who had a problem with what Beltran apparently did. In terms of their due diligence while the investigation was going on, I agree with what Cap said. If they didn't ask him about this after the story broke, after they hired him, and then the story broke a week later, and they never asked him anything, that's malpractice. We want to defer to Major League Baseball's investigation. That's fine. But you're not deferring to their investigation because the upshot of their investigation is that he didn't get punished. And then what you did is turn around and fire him. So if you knew that you might punish him even if Major League Baseball doesn't punish him, then it's incumbent upon you to find out what he did. And it sounds to me like they're reacting to the fact that his name was in the report and not to what he actually did or didn't do that they think is so terrible. It's because he got named and not because they have a problem with the actual conduct, because they didn't take any time to find out what the actual conduct was.
Right,
they just wanted to see if he would get named. They just wanted to see if baseball would name him. And they apparently got assurances from this goes to their inability to think more than one step ahead. They apparently went to baseball and asked about Beltran, and they were assured that he was not going to get suspended. And then they stopped asking questions like, okay, he's not going to get suspended, but guess what? We're going to put his name in the report and say that he was a leader on this. But they didn't even ask that. They didn't ask, is that possible? Might that happen? Might that not happen? They just said, well, they just found out, well, he's a former player. He was a player at the time. And so therefore, we have a deal with the union that none of them are going to get suspended. And then they stopped. They stopped asking questions. They didn't ask Beltran any questions. They didn't ask Major League Baseball any questions. Right. They did no due diligence at all. And then the report comes out and they're reacting over a weekend to figure out what they're going to do. They had no internal process on this at all. And that is frightening. So
it is. I think the biggest surprise is they didn't talk to Beltran at all about this. Like,
they didn't ask him what he did. They didn't ask him what he did.
They didn't even try to get an explanation of what it was that he was being implicated for.
If they asked him what he did, he's presented with a conundrum. He could either tell the truth or he could lie.
Yeah.
And either way, he might get fired. Because if he told the truth, they might fire him. Mm-hmm. If he lied, they fire him for lying. Mm-hmm. And because apparently, from what I've read, he told the truth when Major League Baseball interviewed him. But the Mets never asked him, so he never had the opportunity to tell them the truth or tell them a lie about it. Huh. And so they couldn't say he deceived us in the interview process, he deceived us after the fact, or he told us the truth and we heard what he did and the conduct was egregious.
Right.
They don't have either of those things. They just have the report. And so it seems kind of flimsy and phony to fire him. And, they didn't come out and say, this is egregious, it's terrible conduct, we think it's awful what he did. They didn't do any of that. So to their credit, because they don't know anything about what he did because they didn't ask him. But at the same time, if you might fire the guy based on what happened in Houston, it's incumbent on you to find out what happened in Houston.
Yes, and I think the next question, if we can step it back a bit in the timeline, is that wasn't there already a suspicion that he might have been named in that report to begin with at the point that they hired him? I'm trying to remember when they hired him.
I think what I read now was that there was not any wind that there was going to be an investigation until a week after they hired him.
Okay.
So nobody knew that anything was being investigated at the league office. The Mike Fiers article hadn't come out yet until a week after the hire.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that. So, okay, but then I guess you can't really get on him for that in that case.
Not for hiring him, but after the fact, after you hired him,
right?
You can get on them for not looking into it once they found out. Because you've got those cryptic comments that Alex Cora made about Beltran in the press conference in London.
Wait, in the middle of this, Alex Cora throws somebody else that he knows under the bus?
He said the Yankees' best offseason acquisition last year was Carlos Beltran.
Oh boy.
And then made
what I thought was the most, you were going to say it, the most telling part of that was unprovoked, he brings up the word devices. Nobody, on his own regard. I mean, nobody asked him any questions. Boy. Like Fid said, he said the Yankees' biggest offseason acquisition was Carlos Beltran and his attention to detail, this and that. And then he was like, well, I don't mean any devices or anything like that. But why would he say that? If right.
That's like a little kid who says that I didn't do the very thing that he did.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and then people are like,
nobody asked you that.
And then people are like pointing to that means Carlos Beltran cheated for the Yankees, this and that. It's like, all right, keep reaching. Listen, there's so many people in the base, like so many fan bases that are wishing and praying and reaching and trying to do everything possible to get the Yankees involved in this. And Major League Baseball comes out and said, we're not, we've looked into it. We're not investigating the Yankees. I mean, these people need to stop. I mean, if something comes out in the future, it's one thing. But right now, they're not looking at the Yankees. So you guys can go cry in your cereal.
Everybody knows Beltran was with the Yankees in 2018 or 2019. Everybody knows that. And yet there's no investigation. So, read into that what you will. Alex Cora assumed that Beltran must have been cheating for the Yankees because he knew Beltran from 2017. Right. But if anybody thought that was going on, they knew Beltran was there. Everybody knew Beltran was there. So there would be an investigation.
The funny thing is Cora said it after the London series. So what did the Yankees fly there a week before and place cameras all over the London stadium so they can cheat? I mean, come on.
Right. And also, the Red Sox scored a crap ton of runs in London too.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, there was a lot going on in London, and we don't know what it was, but also I remember a comment Brody Van Wagenen made on the day that they announced the hire of Carlos Beltran, something about Beltran is really good at competitive analysis of his opponents. And it's not just about being the best hitter you can be, but it's also about studying your opponents, yada, yada, yada. And and he was supposed to be, before all this broke, some savant at pitch tipping, right? He's the one who was supposedly figured out all the pitch tipping that Yu Darvish was doing in the World Series. And
so the Mets are about to do their own system?
I don't know what the Mets thought they knew or didn't know. We'll never know.
They would have let
didn't Brody also say something how Beltran, we hired him because of his integrity and his honest, nature or something like that? Maybe. I don't remember that. I mean, Brody always throws that kind of stuff in. So Brody.
Right. Brody. Another thing I noticed about Brody that doesn't have anything to do with this today. Every time he gets up in front of the press to announce an acquisition, the first thing he says is he thanks the Wilpons and ownership for their support during whatever it is they were just finished doing.
You're the GM.
What did they do other than decide to pay the person?
Yeah.
You have to thank them every time? What is that? I don't know. That's neither here nor there, but it's something he did today. He's announcing a new manager for the second time this offseason.
No, wait, let me ask you this. Did they do a press conference for Ross? They did, right?
They issued statements today, and they're doing a press conference tomorrow, which is another tone-deaf thing because Eli Manning is retiring tomorrow, and they're having their press conference at the same time, or the same day at least. That's either they're trying to bury it or they.
I was going to say they might be doing that on purpose.
Maybe it's deliberate. Yeah.
Either they're trying to bury it. I mean, we already had one managerial press conference this offseason. We don't need another one, but or they have no idea what they're doing. But also they're up against the clock because on Saturday is Mets Fan Fest, and so they at Citi Field, a big event that they're doing for the first time this year, and they have to announce. They have no choice but to announce the manager before that happens. They can't go into Fan Fest with rumors swirling and no official confirmation of who the manager is. So they have to do something.
Yeah, with these Fan Fests going on, even with the Red Sox, I saw when their Fan Fest was, it was on a Wednesday. And I remember, I think I said it to you guys or said it to someone. I said, Cora will be gone before Wednesday. Guarantee it. They're not going to send him into a fan fest where he was supposed to be at. I mean, if he doesn't show up, it looks suspicious. If he shows up, it's going to be a nightmare. I said, there's no shot he's going to make it to Wednesday. He got fired on a Tuesday.
Wow.
And, and like Fitz said, the Mets have this fan fest on Saturday. They needed to hire a manager. They needed to. So,
especially they already hired one, and so they needed to announce it. So, they need to make him available to the media. So it's going to be another one of these conference call deals.
Right. And if I may interject, so they hired Luis Rojas. What do you know about him?
I know he's only 38, which means there are now 3 teams in New York that have head coaches or managers who are younger than me, which is very sad. But 2 football teams and the Mets. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So he's 38. He's been in the Mets minor league system for a number of years. He has managed at, I think, 3 different levels. He managed at Double-A in 2018. In 2019, he was a coach on the major league staff. He has as much experience as you would want in someone who has never managed a major league team before, especially considering someone who, who's not only in his 30s. He has years of managerial experience at lower levels. He's managed in winter leagues. He is, considering that you're looking for a manager in January when all of the big candidates have already been hired, that's not necessarily true. There are guys out there like Showalter and Dusty Baker and guys who we could have hired. But considering this is happening outside of the normal managerial hire season, I think they did the best they could do. They seem to put an emphasis on hiring someone who has been in the organizational meetings this entire offseason, is already there, someone internal. They thought that was important, which I think if you were a really smart analytical team with a lot of brain power, I think that would be very important. For this team, I'm not so sure, because I don't know what's going on in these meetings is all that valuable given who I know is running the meeting. But be that as it may, they thought it was important. They must think their ideas are important, and they want someone who's heard them. He's been up and down the system. He knows the players. He managed like all the homegrown Mets have not all of them, but most of them have at some point been managed by Luis Rojas at a lower level before they got to the major leagues. He managed Pete Alonso in Double-A in 2017 or 2018. And Alonso speaks glowingly of him. A lot of guys have tweeted, I've seen best manager I ever had in the minor leagues. So, I think they did the best that they could do under the circumstances. And I don't think he's going to cost them any wins compared to what Carlos Beltran would have done, who was at the end of the day also a rookie manager with no coaching experience, as opposed to Luis Rojas, who has lots of minor league coaching and managing experience. So obviously he's never managed in a major media market like New York, where half the job of any baseball manager is to deal with the media. That's and true. He's never had to do that. Baseball managers are today in 2020. Number 1 job is bullpen management, and number 2 job is media management, and then everything else is after that. Bullpen management, he's done. Media management, he's not done. But I think they did as well as they could have been expected to do, given the circumstances.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with any of that. I think that it may end up being all right in the end. I mean, as we noted, we can't even imagine what the ceiling was going to be in the first place.
Right. I mean, every manager has been a rookie at some point. Yeah,
definitely. I don't even think the Mets are going to be that bad this year. So
that's the criticism that I'm seeing on the other side of it is they are supposed to be trying to win, and so they should have brought in somebody with more experience, like a Dusty Baker or a Terry Collins or a Buck Showalter.
Yeah, right.
But I don't.
I mean, you can combat against that. The Yankees are trying to win. They brought in a rookie manager. The Red Sox brought in a rookie manager who won. I mean, granted. Cora had bench experience, but I feel like this day and age, that with the analytics and, I think a lot of, the manager's job, like you said, has to deal with the media and obviously how you handle a clubhouse. Yeah. And I think, when you're interviewing a manager, it's their personality, is really looked at and, their obviously eye for the analytics and things like that. So I think it's completely different than it was back, a while ago. with the manager. But with that being said, I do think somebody, I don't know about Rojas, what kind of manager he is, but if you had a guy like Dusty and a guy like Showalter, who have, managed in big games and have been there, but you don't know how their old school style is going to mesh with some of the guys. Plus, I think, the Yankees, the Mets, and the Red Sox had a pretty young team. And bringing in a guy that could, not maybe relate to the players, but understand them more and get the most out of them, I think it'd be important. Whereas a guy like Buck Showalter might not be able to do that. So I see it from both sides, but I look at teams now. I think they view the managers completely different than they did 10 years ago.
Cap, Buck Showalter is going to expect a certain level of control that
exactly.
I don't think any team is willing to give him at this point.
Yeah, I don't think he's really got the leverage for that. As far into his career as he is. But I will ask this very interesting connector question. There were some pretty serious rumblings about the Astros hiring either Baker or Showalter to manage the team for 2020. Now, I don't take much stock in that, but where do you guys see the Astros going for the manager coming up?
I'd be surprised if they went down that road.
Especially with the analytics scenario in play. I can't even imagine that with those two guys.
I mean, the Astros are one of the bigger analytical teams in baseball, so I would be surprised if they went down that road. I don't know where they go or what they do. I know there were some names mentioned early on. I think Joe Espada was one of them. Mm-hmm. He's a former Yankee third base coach. I'm sure there were some other ones, but I'd be very surprised if they went down to Showalter, Dusty route, because to me that's not a long-term thing. AJ Hinch isn't coming back. The Astros have a core that should be. I mean, you don't know with Springer if they're going to end up paying Springer, and then Correa is a free agent in 2 years. But you'd think that they would try to keep that core together, and you want a manager that's going to be there for more than 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think that they're going to maybe go down a route of finding somebody who they think could stick, which is why I think they didn't just throw Joe Espada in there and say, okay, he's our manager, because I don't know if they really think he'll stick.
On the other hand, they are, unlike the Mets, they are embroiled in an actual scandal, and they need to stop the bleeding with good PR.
Right, and they also don't have a GM.
They don't have a GM, right? Yeah. So they might want to bring in someone who is well known to be a short-term solution, so that when they finally decide who's going to be in charge long-term, that person can bring in someone else if they want to.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yes, you're right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think, and it also the levels of integrity that both of them possess, at least the reputation of having integrity, is going to be a big factor for the Astros as well. And that was the argument people were making in terms of why they would hire him. I don't think it works out, but certainly with Baker,
the front office in Houston has egg on its face right now.
Yeah.
And I think I think that it would be bad PR to hire someone who's going to be known to be a puppet. Even though what every team wants is a puppet, you want at least the appearance. The Astros want at least the appearance right now of someone who is independent of this front office that's been painted by the league office as having a poisonous culture.
Right.
Yeah,
and the same scenario is going to apply to Boston too, right? Like they have to come up with the same coaching.
Boston's GM hasn't gotten fired.
They're in a completely different boat. Boston, they just brought in a new GM who was highly touted from Tampa. And I think that not that this
the
is
guy running in Boston had nothing to do with 2018.
And I think he also wants to bring in, and Boston isn't a team that's looking to go win a championship next year.
They're rebuilding
like Houston is.
At this. As good as rebuilding at this point.
So I think he wants to do it his way, where he wants to bring in his own guy. Granted, they're looking to move Betts. Until they move Betts, I mean, that offense is still going to be a top 5 offense in baseball. All the guys from last year came back this year, but I think it will have a different feel to that team this year with everything that's going on with, Cora being gone, new GM, moves looming, that, Price is on the market and Betts is on the market. So I do think they'll have a different feel. But when they come into Yankee Stadium and they're running out Betts, Bogarts, Devers, Benintendi, Martinez, that's a tough lineup to face. So until, some of those guys, a lot of people thought that JD Martinez wouldn't be there this year, and they figured Martinez wouldn't be there, then they trade Betts and the team would be kind of bare. That's not the case. They have the whole band back from last year who had a top 5 offense. So until they start making some moves, that's still going to be a pretty tough team when they come in. But now, granted, I don't think they're a playoff team. I think their pitching is abysmal. I think that the Rays are a lot better than them. I think the Yankees are a lot better than them. So I don't think that they are going to, be in the playoff mix. I mean, maybe in the second life, but I think that's going to be gone anyway. So I don't think they're going to be in the playoff mix. But yeah, I mean, they're in a completely different boat than Houston. Houston, I think Dave and I mentioned it earlier that Houston still has a good team. And they still, they didn't suspend the players. The players are still going to be there. Now, granted, that team's going to have a different feel this year, but they still have a lot of really good players on that team.
I think
they did lose Garrett Cole, and also
of course
there's the specter. There's the specter of the cheating, right? You take away the cheating, and all those players are good. We think. We don't actually know how good they are. They're probably really good. Like they're all highly touted prospects and big draft picks and all that stuff. So Alex Bregman is probably a really good player, and Jose Altuve is probably a really good player. But how much of their numbers are inflated? We don't know.
Right. Yeah. There are a lot of these questions are going to be, sketched out over the course of the season. It's a very fascinating year. And
the Astros, they're not going to be as good as last year because, like Fitz said, Dave, you and I mentioned earlier, they lost Garrett Cole. Yep. They lost some of the guys in the back of the bullpen.
And Verlander got older too. On top of that, it's not.
He did, and this is
every year everyone thinks he's going to fall off the cliff, and he doesn't. But
this is the
at some point he will.
This is the argument I had with an Astro fan who basically said, "Listen, the draft picks aren't going to hurt this and that." Look, Verlander is going to be 38, I believe 37 or 30, and whenever his deal's over, I think he's going to be 38. Greinke's 36. Springer is going to be a free agent. Correa is going to be a free agent. If you don't, obviously, I think that at some point, like you said, Verlander is going to slow down, and Greinke, I think, it will as well. They're getting up, and they're not going to pitch, ace type baseball, and when they're 39, 40 years old, at least I don't think they will. So when you don't have those draft picks, even if you have a late first round pick or a mid first, whatever it is, there's still a lot of talent there. So when you don't have those draft picks and you're not picking guys to maybe fill those holes, it's going to be difficult because I think the Astros do have a nice core. I would say that Alvarez, they have Bregman, they have Altuve, but Springer's been huge for them. I think Correa is very overrated, so I'm not going to say he's been huge for them, but he's a talented kid. And obviously Verlander and Greinke are up in age. So if, God forbid, not God forbid, but for their sake, if they get hit with like the injury bug or something, or Verlander and Greinke start to show their age, I mean, they're not as secure moving forward as maybe some of the other teams are, and they don't have draft picks.
Yeah. So let me ask this. This is a very interesting follow-up to that. This is not a follow-up to this necessarily, but, they lost the World Series last year. How did the Nationals do it? How did they do it? They lost every single game at Minute Maid Park. Do you think that the cat was out of the bag by then? Fids, I wanted to get your take on it specifically because, the
there was some vague talk, if I remember correctly, during the World Series about taking measures to prevent your signs from being stolen by the Nationals. I remember some discussion of that. Like it hasn't come back to the surface now, so it's vague in my memory from back in October. But I do remember, like the Astros were using the sequence of signs that you would use on when the runner's on second base. They were using it all the time because they had suspicions about what the Astros were doing. Also, I don't know how much, we're supposed to believe that at some point they just stopped doing this just because.
I agree.
So yeah, I don't believe that.
I agree.
No one told them this. No one told them to stop. Why'd they stop? Just because they did, or because it stopped working? Because teams knew they were doing it, or what? So.
And let's be real. If A.J. Hinch wasn't a moron and used Garrett Cole after the 6th or 7th inning, whenever it was, they probably would have won a World Series.
Yeah. I don't know. They lost, but Dave's right. They did lose. They did lose 4 home games.
They did, but they had the lead in Game 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, I think the Nationals had an inkling of what was going on, and they did the best they could to obscure their signs.
Well, even when the Dodgers played them in 2017, they still won 7 games. So, like you said before, it's not unreasonable for to still be able to beat them while they're doing that.
It's not like we shouldn't. It's a big deal, but it's not like it's not like right. You put me in the box against Clayton Kershaw, and you tell me fastball's coming, I'm still not going to hit it.
Right.
It's not giving him the game. It's a different sport.
It's a huge advantage.
It's a huge advantage, but you still got to. You still could lose despite that advantage.
Yeah, and usually when you're at that level, I mean, and even when you're pitching to the other guys have really good players too. In the World Series, so I'm sure they're able to put up runs and things like that too. So
very well said.
Like with your Dodgers, Dave. I mean, you guys had a really good lineup. You went to Minute Maid Park and you put up 12 runs.
Yep.
But you still lost the game because the Astros knew what freaking pitch was coming.
Right. That's true too. Like if you steal the signs and you mash, but you're on the other side of the game, your guys can't pitch, you'll still lose.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it did. That's what happened in Game 4, right? I mean, so it still can happen, but it maximizes your advantage incredibly. It's just like it's kind of like when the strategy.
It's a big advantage, but it's not an automatic win.
Correct.
It's not that. It's not that. So you can still lose.
Yeah. Very, very good. Very, it's very true. And I was having a lot of fun thinking back to last year's World Series because it was very neat to see the Giant get toppled. And it kind of was like the forerunner of all of this calamity for the Astros. It's kind of like the Astros losing that World Series is like the spark that ignited what essentially has become the downfall of their franchise. It's really remarkable that the Nationals did the unthinkable.
They were already starting to become the villain in the public discussion before this story broke.
Very true. And I was talking to Cap about how the Osuna just getting him in the first place just started the public perception against the Astros, and then
there was the Brandon Taubman in the locker room thing at the end of the Yankee series.
So bad. That was so bad.
Which is related to the Ozuna thing, obviously.
Yep.
And that's another thing Verlander used to talk a lot about, and then when they
he
then
stopped about that anymore.
Yeah. Right, but. So they were already starting. People, just general baseball fans, were already starting to turn on the Astros, and this doesn't help, to say the least. So, sports, like anything else, is an entertainment product, and it's good to have bad guys. That helps sell the game. It's nice to have somebody who you want to see lose. Who you think is really good, but you want to see them lose. That's how pro wrestling makes money. You build up the bad guy, and everyone wants to see him get his ass kicked. And so that's it could be helpful for the narrative of the sport to have a bad guy. And usually the bad guy is the big bad Yankees, and this year it'll be the Astros.
Well, you wouldn't think it would be the Yankees too, though, because they just got Garrett Cole for 9 years.
It might have been the Yankees if things were different.
Interesting.
But I think now, like, they've been super. Like, if there's an Astros Yankees ALCS again, I don't think people are rooting for the Astros.
Oh, no, that's true. That's fair. Totally fair. And I think somebody, I forget who it was, one of the Met fans, not you, but some other Met fan, said that was the triumph of this cheating scandal. It made the Yankees look like a what is it? A sympathetic figure. It's very true. It's very true. Isn't that amazing? And the Dodgers too. They made the Dodgers the big Dodgers with all their payroll. Made them look like a sympathetic figure. You made me feel bad for both
because
teams.
the Dodgers did so much. They spent so much money.
Yeah.
They made so many moves. They acquired so many depth pieces and different players, and 35 man deep on the roster, and my guys in the minor league coming back and forth, all the stuff the Dodgers did, and it still came up short because somebody else cheated.
It's crazy.
Maybe not because somebody else cheated, but that certainly contributed.
Yeah, for sure.
And how much were we killing Dave Roberts, especially you
he deserves
especially,
to be
but all
anyway.
of us.
He did make some stupid decisions anyway.
who knows? Like if he wins the World Series, some of the stupid decisions, you're not going to talk about them.
Absolutely. That's really true. It's always interesting how winning can make you look smarter. It's true in all the sports.
Right. Now, everyone thought Alex Cora was a genius after 2018 because he won. Like, you can't point to specific things.
Right.
He's a genius because they won 108 games in a World Series.
Right.
And even with Alex Cora, same thing as A.J. Hinch. They win the World Series, and he acts like a pompous prick. And I'm telling you, I could not be happier that those two are going to be sitting on the couch watching – I don't even know if they'll watch baseball, but they'll be sitting on the couch doing something, and they're not going to be managing here in any MLB dugout. So both of those guys came off like complete fucking jerks, and they're exactly where they need to be.
Yeah, it does bring closure to this entire saga, and at least from the Astros' point of view, it does. And when you act when you act defiantly like that, you eventually get what's coming to you. Now, it doesn't happen in every case, but in this case, it did, and it was it was spectacular. It really was.
I just don't understand how people. I mean, we had this debate. How I made a comment that the Astros are not a likable group, and somebody said, "Well, I think they are likable." Why? I mean, literally, Rob Manfred in his report undressed them for their culture there. They had, like Dave and I talked about this earlier. I mean, Manfred ripped into them at their culture. They had the cheating scandal. They had the Taubman thing. They had, they had the Gurriel thing, what he did to Darvish. They had, the cocky, the brazen. Why would people like them? If you're, only reason why people will like them is it pisses off the other fan bases that you might not like. Yeah, but they're not a likable group.
Yeah, I mean, I could see you thinking Jose Altuve is likable, right? He smiles a lot. He's, really short, but still good somehow.
Right.
He's, oh, and by the way, that thing, the video going around with him with the shirt is hilarious now. But
it did seem peculiar even at the time, right? We were like looking at that, like, why is he running away?
Weird,
that's the thing. Not even ripping off his jersey. It's him running into the clubhouse to change and then running back out. Like everybody else put on their jerseys on the field. T-shirts on the field? Why did he feel the need to run back into the clubhouse?
Right. I mean, basically, what we know they did invites conspiracy theories about what else they might have done.
Yeah.
Yes.
So who knows if he was wearing something, but it's very suspicious. But anyway, I could see.
Did you see the Chirinos video, Fids, or no?
I don't think I did.
All right, I'll send it over to you guys.
Yeah. But I could see him being a likable guy, like Altuve. But otherwise, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, are they there's a distinction between whether the organization is likable through the front office and ownership and whether the players are likable. Some of the players are likable, I guess, but but I think Altuve is likable.
Yeah, besides him, who?
I liked some of the Alex Bregman stuff he did in the dugout last year. That was fun.
That guy should get punched in the fucking face. Him and his 3-inch piece. I know you saw the picture I know you saw the picture. You don't remember him on the field in his spandex after they beat the Rays?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention to that. Maybe some people were, but it wasn't me.
Oh, it was all over Twitter.
Not in my feed, but that's anyway.
Yeah.
You think your team is likable when you're a fan of the team already and they win. It's the perception changes very quickly, back and forth. So what is a likable group of guys anyway? Like the Nationals are a likable group of guys. Why? They won the World Series.
And they're not assholes. Maybe not.
Maybe they are.
No, people don't like Soto. I'm sure.
Right. I mean, they're not assholes. Maybe they are. Like Max Scherzer kind of seems like an asshole to me.
Yeah. So maybe they're not. Maybe that. I mean, I don't think they're a likable group. There's teams that you could say, they're fun, quirky, likable group. I mean, the Astros are fucking cocky assholes. I mean, I don't know a lot of people who thought that they were likable. I don't know. For the Taubman stuff and
also if you're inclined to hate the Yankees. Then you're going to like whoever beats the Yankees.
Exactly. And you know what? That's when people can't be objective when you're talking about that kind of stuff. And then they just, spout stupid shit off and, you can't take it serious.
Yeah. Let's close with a couple of quick hitters on the offseason. So we're not going to have time to do everything in detail tonight. But obviously, Gerrit Cole is the biggest signing of the offseason so far, and Anthony Rendon was the second biggest one. And Kluber getting traded to the Rangers was a pretty big move in itself. So these are big transactions, and we can just comment on everything in one sitting. Cap, this is obviously a huge deal for the Yankees. It really changes the face of their rotation, and it is without question that they're the team to beat. What do you think? Sorry to pull a Buster, but seriously, that's a big move, and I think this is the right time for it for the Yankees.
Big isn't the word. It was humongous. It's much needed. We have a guy who's top 2 or 3 pitcher in baseball the past 2 years. We needed that ace in our rotation, and what that does is that takes the pressure off a lot of other guys. Obviously, Severino was injured last year, so he lost a year of development, which stinks. But we saw what he did in 17. We saw what he did in the first half of 18. And even when he pitched last year, I didn't think he pitched that bad. He was kind of rushed into the situation, so he wasn't able to give too much length. But I don't think he pitched that bad. So having him, and I'm higher on James Paxton than most. I think a lefty with his kind of stuff they don't grow on trees. So I think that is a humongous get in Gerrit Cole. And people want to talk about years, this and that. How old is Max Scherzer when his deal's over? How old is Justin Verlander when his deal is over? You hope. How old is DeGrom going to be when his deal is over? You hope that a guy like Cole can age like that, because if he can pitch at that level up to the age 36, 37, I think his contract's up when he's either 38 or 39. You take it. If he can give you the majority of his contract pitching at a high level, you take it. I saw a lot of people go, look at the years. Would you take Justin Verlander right now? He's 37. Would you take Max Scherzer? He's 36. Yeah, absolutely you would. So you hope that Gerrit Cole ages like that. And it's somebody that the Yankees absolutely needed, because we didn't have that guy where we can say, hey, here's the ball, go give us 7 or 8, and we need this win. And like I said, he takes the pressure off a lot of the people, and it takes pressure off our bullpen. If we can keep our rotation healthy, we won't have to go to those guys, in the 4th inning, or go to those guys almost every other night. Because at the end of the year, even though they did pitch pretty well in the ALCS, the Yankees overall pitched better in the ALCS than the Nationals pitched in the World Series through 6 games. The numbers don't lie. The strikeout numbers, the ERA numbers, the walk numbers all favored the Yankees. The only thing was the Nationals were able to get clutch hits and the Yankees weren't. So, but back to my point is having a healthy rotation, a guy like Gerrit Cole who can eat innings, it's going to help everybody. It's going to help the whole pitching staff from bullpen to starters, and it's going to be huge getting him moving forward. I thought he was an absolute necessity for a couple reasons. One, it's just money, and you're the Yankees and you have it. 2, if you look at the free agent market the next couple of years, there's not a pitcher that will come close to what Gerrit Cole is on the free agent market. And 3, you see some of the guys who might hit free agency, in 4 or 5 years, but they might not. With the way the MLB signing extensions these days, you don't know if, some of the guys will sign extensions and stay where they are. And the trade market is pretty bare. There's nothing. There's no really aces on the trade market. So I don't know where the Yankees are going to go out and get an ace if they missed out on Gerrit Cole. So I thought he was an absolute necessity, and getting him, like you said, we should be the team to beat this year. We have a deep bullpen. We have a very good rotation, and we have a very good lineup. So he really completes what we're trying to do, and hopefully we can finally get over that hump and bring home a championship.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk in the latter part of that contract, but who even knows where they're going to be by then? It might even be, by then he might opt out, they might trade him, so I don't even think you worry about that right now. So
he has a no trade clause, so.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, very good. But
my point with leaving later in his contract, he's 29 now, right?
Right.
So say he pitches 7 good years of his contract into age 36. Max is 36, Greinke's 36, Verlander's 36. So you hope he ages that way. If he can pitch 34, 35, what you don't want to see is you don't want to see what happened to CeCe, where CeCe kind of, lost his velocity, fell apart, in the middle of his contract, and then was able to pick it up from 2016, 17, and 18 and pitch, and be productive. But he wasn't like an ace. Max was still an ace at that age. Obviously, Verlander was still an ace at that age, and, some other guys. So you hope that he's able to age like that. And if he's able to do that, pitch, at a high level into age 35, 36, I think, he's going to be, well worth that contract because, listen, if there is another guy who comes out like him in, 5-6 years, then they're going to get paid more than Garrett Cole did because, every year it seems like the contracts are going up.
Right. It is going to be interesting because, we were talking about how pitchers are getting smaller and smaller contracts, and then that happened. So it is going to be an interesting, few years after the fact. But if you're talking about the now and the next couple years after that, I feel like it's a slam dunk. So that's very well said. Fitz, let's get your thoughts on these transactions, but specifically, Cole. It's certainly a big mover and shaker in baseball.
Yeah, I think I don't need to reiterate everything Cap said. He's absolutely right about everything. The cascading effect of getting an ace and putting him at the top of your rotation is enormous because like Cap said, it's not just his numbers. It improves the numbers of all the pitchers below him in the rotation. It takes out the worst guy in the rotation and replaces him with the best guy in the with a new best guy in the rotation. It takes the workload off the bullpen, improves their numbers. They'll pitch fewer innings, but they'll be better innings. They'll be well rested when you come to October. It has such a cascading effect on not just on his production when he's in the game, but what that means for when other pitchers are in the game. So it's a huge effect on your team when you sign a guy like that. As for his contract, there's going to be a new CBA, whatever it is, 2-3 years from now. And I think after that CBA, if the union has any stones at all, you're going to see higher contracts after that CBA than you are seeing now under this CBA. So this contract might not look so bad when you compare it to contracts that are handed out after they negotiate another CBA. So you can't know whether he's underpaid, overpaid, because you don't really know what other guys are going to get paid 5 years down the line. Because if you really believe that the players as a whole are underpaid right now, and if you also believe that they're going to be able to fix that in the CBA negotiations, then maybe Garrett Cole is not overpaid at age 35. Maybe he's making exactly what he should be making. And we won't know that until we see what the free agent market looks like in 6 years, which is going to be completely different because I think the whole structure of the game is going to change. So as far as the contract, I don't think you can evaluate the out years like that. And the effect on the baseball team now during this window when, the Astros just got punched in the face, the Red Sox are going to retreat. The Indians aren't going to be very good. So, the Astros are still good, obviously. I'm not saying, don't play the season and put the Yankees in the World Series, but this is, Aaron Judge is going to be a free agent. He's about to enter. I don't know. He's going to be 32 years from now. The window is now. The core. You do have young players who are going to be around beyond the next couple of years, but the window is open right now, and I think this is a well-advised move that they made. Given where they were last year in terms of how many games they won, where their chief rivals in the American League are right now, they couldn't have known what was about to happen to the Astros and the Red Sox. But I think the move looks even better now than it did when they made it because of that, especially the Astros. And I think when we knew the Red Sox were taking a step back anyway. But in terms of the Astros, I think this move not only does it improve the Yankees, but he was on the Astros, so it makes them worse. And their window looks a little different than it used to because of what we've been talking about for the last hour. So I think this move is an excellent move for the Yankees. The current system, the financial system in the game, is such that it allows the Yankees to flex their muscles like this. They haven't done it in quite a long time. this I think was the move to make. Now, obviously, he's a pitcher. Pitchers get hurt all the time. There's obviously risk involved, but this guy obviously figured something out in Houston. He's going to be able to bring it with him over to the Yankees. It makes the Yankees better. It makes the Astros worse. And I think it's exact, and it makes the other players on the Yankees better, not just Garrett Cole himself and his numbers. So I think it's an excellent move. And I don't think the out years are a huge concern, especially for a team like the Yankees, whose revenues keep growing, but whose payroll has not grown. So they've got plenty of room to still make money and pay more for players. And so I don't see this contract as a problem for them going forward. So I think it's a great move. The Rendon move to the Angels, I think would have been much better off signing Cole than Rendon. They basically gave Rendon Garrett Cole's money. Their needs were more in the rotation than in the lineup.
Yep.
But Cole signed with the Yankees. And so they took the next best player available. Steven Strasburg was also a free agent. He signed back with the Nationals. That was also a big deal. But they signed the best player who was available after Cole and Strasburg signed. And good for them. They need to build a winner around Mike Trout sooner or later, preferably sooner. Trout's going to be, I think, 29 this year. And they need to get their ship moving. So, I think we'll do a more rigorous preseason preview podcast at some point closer to spring training. But the Angels need serious help in the rotation. And I don't know where they're going to get it from. But I think this move for Anthony Rendon was a signal that they're at least trying to do something to build something around Mike Trout. And you hope they improve on the other side as well, especially in that division where, as we just were talking about, the Astros just got punched in the face, and maybe not this year, but maybe the core is getting older. They don't have a manager. They don't have a GM. You don't know where they go, and this might be an opening for the Angels to finally do something.
Well, we'll see about that. Like you said, I think there's still some issues there to be had with the pitching staff, but. That's pretty much where I am with all these as well. Guys, it's time to wrap it up. Jer, been a lot of fun. Jer, actually, I think he's already jumped off. But
I'm here.
Oh, you're still here. Oh, okay, sorry. But, fellas, this has been great, and I appreciate you coming back. It's good to get the baseball groove on again. I'll give it to you guys for final thoughts. Jer, you first, and then we'll go to Ari, and then we'll close it up tonight.
No, it felt good to be back even in the middle of January when it's freezing out. We're always thinking about baseball. So can't wait to do it again within the next month and a half or so before spring training, before opening day with the preview. So this was a nice warm up for it, and looking forward to doing it again soon. Thanks for having me. Fidz, great to talk to you again. Hope all's well with the family and the newborn, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you guys soon.
Right on. Fidz?
Yeah, same thing. I'm happy to do this. I didn't get to do these at the end of last season. I'm happy to be back. And I'm happy to be talking about baseball when it is in the 30s and 40s outside. Like Cap said, it's, they called it the hot stove for that reason. That's why you sit around a hot stove trying to warm yourself up, talk about the summer and feel like it's summertime. And, baseball conjures up all that imagery, and it makes you feel warm inside. And I'm really happy to talk about it here in the month of January. And I look forward to doing it again soon. And thanks for the opportunity to do this again, Dave. Great show, as always. And talk to you the next time we do this.
Oh, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. And certainly the same feelings back to you. Enjoy the remainder of your winter, and hopefully things warm up for you down the line. Been a lot of fun. Take care, guys, and enjoy your weekend.
Good night, Dave.
Night, fellas. Night, Cap. Night, Ari. That's our show tonight. And thank you very much for listening, everybody. Good little feeler off-season program for you. And just the beginning for all of us here in the city. Hope you enjoyed it. Super Bowl week is next week. We've got a lot in store for you. I can't reveal the specific details, but all the usual scenarios with the preview and our prop bet show should be in effect. We hope you enjoy it. But until then, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next time.